Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. So my guest today, I'm always excited about my guests. I have the best guests, but here's the thing. Miss Lacey Free calls me and is like, you got to talk to this lady. She's talking about the new generation of kids coming in. And I was like, I just emailed her or texted, her name's Rosie. So I just texted her out of the blue. And then I don't even know that much about, I just had to do an intro because I was so excited in that topic. But she's a death and birth doula, which we have plenty to talk about with that. She's a midwife, and Rosie, I am just going to jump right in. First of all, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about your, shall we say, metaphysical or paranormal background. For example, I would say you're woo-woo, right? I know death doula isn't as woo-woo as, but it is. When did you sort of embrace the metaphysical?
I think I was raised with it, honestly. One of our sort of like a second grandmother to me was an amazing mystic, and I, got to witness her death. And when I did, I was able to see her passing very clearly when I was very young. And so I feel like she's sort of in the physical realm as well as once she's passed, sort of held me in that way. And I, when I was a young teenager, I apprenticed with like a curandera, and I just have always been in the metaphysical realms really strong. I'm a good dreamer, so that's just kind of my life. It's who I was born to be. So, yeah.
Okay. So I already have 1,000 questions right in just what you said. First of all, I love the word mystic. I'm thinking, when am I going to be able to call myself a mystic? I read,
right.
tarot cards, but it's a great word and it means something so different. And I think it's like when I got involved in comedy, me and my friends, we never said we were comics until we thought we had earned the title, because we thought,
right.
And that's the same with mystic. I think you got to earn that title. So,
yep.
So she was, like you said, sort of a grandmother. Did you, after she passed, did she communicate with you? Did she kind of guide you?
Yep, quite a bit. And when she was in the waking realms or just in the physical realm, we would do dream communication a lot. She'd be like, come to me in the dreams and we'll do these things, and we would do them. And so we got really good at talking to each other and then in the astral spaces. So in death, it was just like nothing had changed. And then she would start coming to me in waking spaces too. And it was really, really easy to continue communication with her.
Okay, we're going to get to the dreams, but you studied under and you threw out a giant word that sounded beautiful that I couldn't.
It's a Mexican word. It's a curandera, and this woman was half kumiai, half yaqui, but practiced in a really Mexica way, which is like Mexican healing, So I learned a lot from her and have been kind of walking in that way actually a lot. I have a lot of teachers in that way. So.
Okay, so that's like not just a Reiki, but it's like the Mexican version of energy healing?
Exactly, like energy healing, soul retrieval, just sight, that kind of thing.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so now I have... folks, the topic we're getting to that I'm already is the topic is the new generation of kids coming in, which is fascinating. But how do you we were talking about talking to your grandmother in your dreams. I have often tried this with living people. Is it about being able to control your dreams, or two people meeting on the same plane? Can you tell me anything about that?
I mean, what we would do is both just get in a lucid space and then agree to meet in a certain physical location in the dream realm. Like I'll meet you at the waterfall, and we've been there before, so we know where the waterfall is, and then we'll go there and I'll see her very clearly. And she has a essence about her that I can tell that she's not just a figment of my unconscious. And then the next day we would talk about it and confirm details, so it was a very clear, and we would do that, very commonly. She was very explicit about teaching me how to dream and how to defend myself in the dream realm and how to travel certain ways and places. So I feel like really that was a huge part of just who I am in life, was learning to dream as a young one.
Wow. Is it, like, I know if I start to, there was a time in my life where I was meditating an hour a day. I was just,
Uh-huh.
I made this decision. I was miserable. I said, I'm going to be happy no matter what. And I was so in touch with everything, including controlling my dreams, being able to fly wherever I wanted, go wherever I wanted. Is there any trick to that? Or is it just do the work and get control of your mind or program it before you go to bed?
I don't know that I'm the best person to ask because I started really young. So being lucid as a young one, I think is really easy. I think for me, something that was helpful was as I would fall asleep, I would just imagine things and then I would notice the dream realm coming into my imagination. And I'd be like, oh, I choose to do this dream with you. And as I would walk in, I would kind of maintain lucidity. So
awesome. Okay. And the reason there was something else I asked you before, which was about, because especially as a death doula, you have had a near-death experience. Can you tell me about that? I love these.
I've had two. One was in a car accident and I had to be revived and it was a pretty beautiful experience. Like I went out of body and saw my ancestors and like sort of, crossed the river and they were like, you're not staying here. And I was like, but why? This is great. And they were like, no, it's not your time. Go back. And I came back and then came to, but very clearly saw this river that was to be crossed and in that particular space. And then there was another time when I was much younger, where I had an overdose and in coming to, it was a much more lost experience. It wasn't quite as tranquil. It was a lot more like wandering in this limbo space, but I was definitely out of my body. Like I saw myself leaving. I saw my body staying behind as I left and entered this place of strange colors, which is interesting because it's how my son describes before birth times, is this place of colors. So it's the same place, but yeah. And then I was revived and came back to my body and it was very jolty, so.
Wow. I had it's very interesting because I had a neighbor who overdosed, a young girl. And so that's a different kind of near-death experience, but she passed away. It's funny. I kind of know she's around, but I'm learning mediumship so I can try and contact her. But so would you say that's a different realm? It wasn't necessarily negative, or was it like a little scarier than the other one?
My relation to fear is a little bit different, but I don't think that, I wouldn't say it was scary, but it definitely felt less in control. Like I was less aware, a lot more lost, which is why I don't encourage people to like overdose on, opiate related things at the end of life, which most of our elders do, right?
Oh.
We usually have most of them just like out of their minds on morphine and Dilaudid and all these things. And I'm like, ooh, like you might want to be a little bit more sentient when it's time. So we tend to titrate back when it's getting close. But
well, that's the American way, is to anesthetize.
Right. Exactly. But in the end, you get lost, and I see that a lot. Like you need to do a lot more guiding of the people that go out from drugs.
Wow. Is that that's probably a lot of hauntings, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think people are just lost and don't know where to go. And they're just in this, for me, it was like this light realm, but I think they also just get caught in this realm, just out of their bodies,
Yeah, because they didn't know enough that they were dying. That's fascinating. That's probably Are hospitals overwhelming to you because people are walking around like that?
Yeah, there's so many ghosts in hospitals. And it's definitely, I've worked in them before and it's always just like, there's so much work to do on the energetic level there. I just wish that there was like energetic people like surrounding the hospitals all the time, just helping the ones go,
Wow. I know we do, when you're doing paranormal investigation, a hospital that is a hospital, abandoned hospital. It can be like the one we used to go to, Linda Vista, was like just crazy haunted, like some nasty stuff, some good stuff. So, I have a weird question for you, but I just met someone and he was a soldier and he was in Afghanistan and he has had 2 near-death experiences. I'm assuming they were in Afghanistan because he got shot and a lot of things there. Right. Both his near-death experiences, it just went black. There was nothing. And I think that scares him. I don't know. Do you know anything about that or have any theories on what that was?
I wonder for how long he was in that dark space, but I actually don't know. I feel like there's so many places that you can go, and I feel like when the trauma is that intense from like an explosion or a wound like that, that sometimes the body just needs to stop for a second. But as long as you can call it back in and send it where it needs to go, it's okay.
Okay.
But,
So, because I didn't know what to say to him, and I didn't, I'm not in charge of that.
right.
I don't know. I didn't want to be like, you'll be fine next time you get shot again.
Right.
Because I don't know. Death doula, I kind of don't know what this is. This is where somebody is in hospice and they're getting ready to pass on, and you just help them if they're scared. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it looks similar to birth. It looks so different depending on who you're working with. But usually I start working with people when they get a terminal illness, like a terminal diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And then often, I'm a primitive crafter, so we often do some sort of a craft, like weaving their coffin out of willows, or like weaving the shroud, or decorating like a cardboard coffin, or just doing some, creating like the wreaths to burn with them in the cremation space. And so we do some sort of a craft while we discuss their life, while we discuss their death. And it just, everybody is so different. And then I'm almost always with them as they're passing, and then just help tend the body after and help make sure that they're where they need to get going. So
do you see them in your mind, or you probably physically see them leave their body?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. And that's just a gift you've had since you were a kid, and everybody encouraged it, which is why it didn't go away.
I don't think, I'm rather quiet, so I don't know that anybody discouraged it, but I don't really talk about it too much either. But like I think that most people can tune into that on some level. Like I have a 3.5-year-old, and he comes to births and deaths with me, and ever since he was a little baby, he would know when someone was going to go. It'd be before the machines would beep off. He'd be like, bye-bye. And then they would, head on out. So.
Wow. Do you ever run into people that you're like, wow, this one's not going? This is
a lot of people. And then you got to kind of kick them out a little bit and just, show them the way and get them going. So yeah, quite a few.
That's quite fascinating how much say we do have in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And just, that's the one thing, almost a lot of the people that come back, they're like, I know I want to go. It was so peaceful. It was so, sometimes I wonder when we do that, when we do come back, it's like we expect our purpose to be something great. I think people expect sometimes our life purpose is much simpler, I think, than we think. But,
right.
I have to do this because this is a paranormal podcast. Do you ever see anything dark around death? I mean, I do believe there is a Grim Reaper, sort of, and I think we've made him scary skeleton man. But I actually believe there's something to that, and I know other people that have seen. I think I've seen him, but is he of the positive side or the negative side, or you haven't had any interactions?
To be perfectly honest, I tend to see it as a female being rather than a male being, though I think it's different for every person. But, like in the Aztec cosmology, they call it Mictlantecuhtli, which is like Lady Death. And, there's huge cults in Mexico and stuff that worship Lady Death. But to me, it feels very female. And maybe that's just the way I understand it. But I definitely see oftentimes like this big, and it feels like a very nurturing mama figure come sometimes and take the people. And that feels like Lady Death to me. I almost never see like a negative being that is death. I definitely see negativity from the life, memory lines that won't get off, connections of trauma that aren't healed, things that you really have to kind of sever and get off so that the person can go where they need to go because they're too heavy.
Is that, so there's a certain amount of trauma we're supposed to leave here, and then maybe there's some that goes to the next life?
Yeah, I think that's very true. I've definitely been resuscitating babies before, actually all the time. Like I used to resuscitate mouth to mouth. And when I would do that, I would go into vision space very strongly. And with so many of these babies, I feel, and who knows if we have past lives, but it was so clear with so many babies that I would go into this other life and see this being that had just been killed and be like, hey, you're coming in. And they're like, no. So, and then later in that kid's life, they'll play out that scene. And I haven't told the parents or anything like that, but the parents will call me and be like, hey, this kid's playing out this really disturbing thing. What's going on? And I'm like, oh, I saw that. That's where they're coming from. and
Wow.
you have to work through it. So to me, it's like, it's hard to deny it, because I feel like, yeah, we come in with what we left with, what we haven't worked through.
So you would see like it happening in a past life, and then they start acting it out in this life.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I had a resuscitation 2 years ago with this really dear little one, and I was resuscitating him and saw this young man from the Middle East getting killed. And I was like, hey, friend, you got to come in. And the baby was like, I don't want to come in. Like, this is not the thing I want to do anymore. And I'm like, it's better out here, I promise. And I just dragged this little one in. And as soon as I did, he took his first breath and, came to life. And then, yeah, as that kid grew up, he was obsessed with the name of that being. And he was always playing out this violent death that he had experienced. And I had witnessed that. And it was really interesting working with him to process that and move into this life fully. He was, I think, 5 years old by the time we were able to completely work through it. So,
wow. Well, yeah. Good for you for getting it out so young. I'm working mine out at 55.
Right. Totally. I mean, that's just the one he came from. Who knows if there's more, but yeah.
There is something about that we need to, like I went to a shaman, and she was, easy way to say it, removing a program. And I immediately saw who I was. I immediately saw I was this, this young girl and all this. And it really is quite interesting. So we bring the good back in too, though, I think, some of our good qualities. That's fascinating. I also find it kind of fascinating that, first of all, when you say resuscitate babies, I'm not even a baby person, and I'm like, what? Why are they need to be resuscitated? But hang on, I lost my question. Oh, so some souls really don't want to come back even at birth.
Yeah. And for some, that's their contract. They've only come to walk with us so far, and that's okay. But for others, it's because of trauma, and that's not a reason to not come in, Wow. So with those ones, I'm usually like, no, if you're coming in, we're going to work through it. It's okay. It works out usually. What
is your opinion of, so shall we say, the end game, where we are... we worked on, because I know some people come in and it's really their last life, or it's one where they're just here to play, like they already did it and now it's just
right.
Fun.
Right.
Is that the ultimate goal, to just be happy and love? Is that the ultimate place we're going?
I don't know if there's an ultimate place. The Buddhists say it's moksha, right, which is sort of the ultimate nothingness, and for lack of a better word. I'm not sure. I feel like there's just more and more and more places that we go. We just have a long journey forward. And forward isn't totally the right word, but spiraling somewhere or other. I just feel like this is one tiny experience in the infinite experience of the soul.
It makes me tired.
Yeah, totally. I think this realm is rather tiring sometimes.
It is, especially when it's this hot.
Right.
And the planet is heating up. Yeah, I think I think there's kind of a button or a switch. And I think as you get older, I'm in my 50s, I find it easier for me to flip out of trauma, flip out of depression, or flip out of... I think I have a good life where I do what I want. That's the thing. I didn't get a job someone else told me to. I just went the way I wanted. So I think the heaviness, especially when you're young and you have all those hormones, I just feel like that's when I kind of feel bad for people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you're 50, you're like, screw it. I don't care. Or you're like, I gotta get in the fun things I always wanted to do.
Right. And I think that's just being closer to death. I think that's one of the gifts of death, right? Is that it allows us to really let go and embrace the beauty and the joy. I feel like that comes from death to me.
Yeah, that's what we got to do. Okay, hang on, folks. We're going to be right back, and we're going to go right into resuscitating babies. Oh my goodness, such a scary word. All right, folks, we'll be right back. Hey everybody, here's my upcoming dates. You can get all of these on my calendar at karenrontowski.com. You can see me September 11th at the Camino Real Playhouse in Orange County. That is a 7:00 show. You can see me September 17th in Decatur, Illinois. doing a dry bar comedy show with my friend Dwayne Perkins. That is a great show. Please come see us, Decatur. Also, on September 24th, I will be in Ogden, Utah at Wise Guys. September 25th, I will be shooting my new dry bar comedy special in Provo, Utah. That is a 7 o'clock show and a 10 o'clock show. You can see me the 30th in Burbank at Flappers doing my psychic stand-up show. Or Phoenix, Arizona. I can't wait. This date just added October 15th and 16th. I will be at Stir Crazy. I love this club. Come see me there. And the big Halloween weekend, September 28th, 29th, and 30th. You can see me at Zany's in Rosemont and the 31st at Zany's in downtown Chicago. I think that's it for now. All right. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. When you're talking about resuscitating babies, is that just part of birth, or does it happen a lot? Or
no, it's not that common.
Okay,
yeah.
Let's make people worry. So if you have so we'll just say this right out. If you're hiring a midwife or a birth doula, you have to know CPR, right?
I mean, it's helpful, but a lot of moms can really just do it intuitively. It doesn't have to, it's a really intuitive thing. But yeah, it's nice if your care provider knows how to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So what is that? Just when a baby comes in and they're not reacting, or the soul doesn't?
Yeah. It's really no heart, no respirations, or really low, not going good enough heart and respirations. And oftentimes its soul doesn't want to come in, almost always.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a new generation of beings, people, DNA. What the heck is going on?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've just been seeing it shift, and the placentas are shifting, where the little ones seem to be coming are shifting. The way they're communicating is different. Yeah. And it's been increasing in the last decade, but especially in the last year, it's been astronomical.
So what would be, I'll just tell you the story. I think I have a listener, or I have someone I read for, and I think she was listening to the podcast, and she had a little boy that, and pardon me, my friend, if I hack your story to death, but the gist of it was she had a little boy that she thought was mute. And I believe in the reading, I was like, I don't think he is. And, something about they were watching Ancient Aliens or something, and he started to point to the TV and made some sort of I know them kind of thing. And so when the mother says, or when they say to him, are you communicating with the aliens? He says yes. So I think he's probably past the being mute part, or he's doing that, but it's literally that communication must be going on. Have you heard of anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen babies that, source from different places, and therefore some of the earthly things are stunted because they're growing and communicating and doing so much work in different realms. So yes, I totally have.
Wow. So they, let me see if I can break that down. So they're coming from different realms. So would it kind of be alien DNA? Would it be the Anunnaki, or just all different things?
Yeah, I mean, on a physical genetic level, I'm not totally sure, but I would not be surprised. I mean, at least on the placental level, everything's looking and feeling different. And when I'm sending in tests to the lab just to get things analyzed, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff in the placentas that we didn't used to see. And maybe some of it's toxins, but also some of it's just just weird other substances, minerals that aren't usually in placentas, things like that, which is curious. So I wouldn't be surprised if these babies actually are physically coming from somewhere far. Yeah. And I also am curious about sort of the horizontal DNA traits coming in from, prehistoric times as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's totally a genetic shift in the ones coming now.
Wow. So when you say DNA from historic times, that means, can you elaborate on that?
I mean, prehistoric, there was Homo sapien, but there was also all these other sort of subspecies of, Homo erectus that we mated with and were able to successfully mate with, like Neanderthals or Denisovans or just different ones like that. And we have horizontal gene traits that come out as we get older, and when we see that in corn, we see that in not just human genetics. And I wonder if some of the new little ones that I'm sensing coming from far away are having some of those genes become more dominant, though I'm not sure. I haven't like taken blood or anything, but at least what I'm sensing is that they're coming from that place. And then they grow up and have different things. Like they have different, like the prehistoric babies. Yeah, they seem to be a lot slower on reading, but a lot faster on talking, and like a lot faster on solid foods and just like random little stuff,
Now, do you think we're labeling some of these kids autistic or ADHD and we're just not understanding?
Absolutely. I think a lot of the mental health industry, and I mean, perhaps it does some good, but I think that we vastly misunderstand pretty much all the kids that we label one thing or another. Yeah.
I have I always think the label then stops people from growing. If I'm going to tell you you're borderline or whatever, then you go, oh, well, I'm borderline. That's why I did that, and it doesn't work.
Right.
Taking a step back. Now, a lot of people that are doing that, Ancestry.com, my friend came up to me and said she found out she had Neanderthal in her, which kind of sounds funny, but it's just a different type of DNA, right?
Right.
Okay.
And a lot of folks have it. A lot of people of Indo-European origin have Neanderthal genes, so.
Wow. So when you say the placenta is different, so on the scientific lab, it's obviously different. Would there be perhaps more junk DNA in there maybe? Or it's just stuff that you recognize, but you were like, this isn't ordinarily here?
Well, I'm not looking so much at DNA in the placentas, but when I just I'll find weird parts in the placentas, pockets of fluid that weren't there before, weird tissue, and I'll take a sample and I'll send it into the lab here. Like we have a really good lab as part of the university. And first of all, there's tons of toxins in the placentas now, but also there's minerals that are, just like not that common in this part of the world, or, just things that are just odd, that weren't in placentas before, that really are not supposed to be there per our sort of old version of physiology.
Now, I'm a big one that our food source is messed up. Could it be our food source?
I think a lot of the toxins that are in the placentas have, lend themselves to our food and the plastic that comes in food and the chemicals that are used on it. But I also think that there's got to be something else too.
It's just too predominant that it can't.
There's too many things in it. But the world is shifting, and we're shifting, I think, as a result.
Yeah. What do you think? Now, I know, like I said, I'm not really a kid person. I don't hate kids, but it works well in my comedy act if I act like I hate kids. But I actually like kids. But I don't have them. But of course, every mom is kind of like, this kid is special, but a lot of them are. A lot of them are really psychic. And would you say that's literally the change, or we're just open to it now a little more?
I think it goes both ways. I think perhaps we're more open to it, but we don't know how to hold it. But I feel like we're all born with some sort of intrinsic gift and ability to just, communicate in the other realms or dream well or all these things. They're not that special. I feel like we all kind of have them. So I just feel like that's part of the human ability, that's something we all can do.
So we all, so we all can do it. So probably someone that's more metaphysically open would encourage that, and it shines, or you see it.
Right. And I think that there's some people that are born with a sort of intrinsic proclivity to it, or perhaps like an inability to turn it off, which I definitely see in some some kids labeled autistic or different things. So I think that we all have it though, ultimately.
And let's hit autism just for a second, because we'll hit it lightly, because I know we can't blanket anything, especially if a mom has an autistic kid and they're like, nope, y'all are wrong. You with the no children are wrong. Right. But it's almost like, is that I don't know how to describe it. Is autism part of where mankind is going as a species, or is
the prevalence is increasing so fast, and so yes, absolutely, it's where we're going as a species. Just on the numbers game, there's so many. It's more often and more current than it's ever been. Really, and see, I kind of thought that was going to decrease, but it's not, is it? Not yet. Right now, it's astronomically increasing.
And are they what do they call high functioning, or is it like some?
Yes.
Okay.
Often high functioning. Yeah.
Which would now the only I know I very well my friend Josh, who is my friend Sonia's son, who they have a podcast called Josh Has Autism. He's in his 30s now,
Cool.
and he is high functioning, but his brain can be like a computer, like
Exactly.
so they're almost coming in programmed like computers.
Right. Totally. Yeah. I feel like, we all come in with some like with gift and purpose and, ability to do and really, to label somebody something is really just our inability to recognize what they've got to give. And I see a lot of autistic kids having so many gifts to give. And and I think we're learning how to walk with them, at least in the younger childhood spectrum. In my town, we're learning how to walk with the gift that it can be.
Because we're not set up for them to have a job, have a life, and
Right.
a lot of them are very, very capable of that.
Right.
I always think if I had a company and there was a perfect job for a person that had autism that, because I know Josh likes everything just so, and this is probably, it's like, that's probably the person you want analyzing things or data because they don't make mistakes.
Right. I mean, some of the most well tech people around me are severely autistic, and and that's great. I mean, people are finding ways that work for them, and the fields in which they can communicate in a deep way.
Yeah, and I think that I think they say it's a spectrum. I had someone get mad at this, so we're all on it somewhere. If it's a spectrum, right?
Perhaps, yeah.
Okay.
I don't totally buy mental health diagnoses in general. So I don't know. I think if it helps the individual, then that's great. But I don't see it helping the whole to have a box, whether it's a spectrum or not, personally. But
I couldn't agree with that more. I think we're slowly finding out that schizophrenia, in fact, I have someone I'm communicating with through email, that schizophrenia is not a mental disorder. It's something else. It's people seeing through dimensions or something like that.
Right.
So when you see these kids coming in that are different, can you describe how or where you think they're going? Or I just find this so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like when I'm in labor, but also just in the pregnancy, I can usually tune into baby and at least see where they're coming from. And the prehistoric ones communicate a lot, and the ones from space are usually too far away to communicate and land like as soon as they're born. And then, are here and ready to be here and ready to kind of like be adults already. And I feel like they're the ones that are moving astronomically fast, and the prehistoric ones are moving extremely slow. And there's deep medicine in both of those things. So what I'm curious about is what's going to happen when the two of those breed and, make the next thing that is like the combination of this extremely old and this completely other. And I feel like that's going to be the shift in the world. Like, I feel like it's kind of in the long run, but I feel like that's going to be the big shift is when those two combine and make whatever's new.
Yeah, that is a super interesting. So I'm going to break that down. So the super fast ones that are already coming as adults, they sort of have their purpose. They know where they want to go. They're moving. They're all set, would you say? The other ones that are coming in, when you say they're prehistoric, they take their time with learning and
yeah, they take their time. They go super deep. Like they just source their being from like the depths of the earth, like they really understand the cycles. They understand the deep waves, right? But they move slow. They move with those cycles, which are not fast.
Would a good sort of, I keep trying to label and put things in boxes, and you're so good at not doing that. Would it be like, for lack of a judgment, the prehistoric would be a little bit more deeper and more spiritual, whereas the other ones are more tending to the earth and we're going to get things done, sort of?
I think they're both spiritual on really different levels, right? I feel like the cosmic ones are spiritual and sort of like the higher level, like high, like in the head and beyond sort of a thing, like can connect to the celestial bodies, to the above worlds, to the gods of the sky. And I feel like the prehistoric ones are the ones that connect, from like the feet and the pelvis, and the ones that connect to the ones of the underworld, to the seeds, to the deep rocks, to the bones. So I feel like you need the bones as well as the skin to flesh out the body. And I feel like in some ways it's like the physical and the auric body, I suppose, and those two together, I feel like is going to make the whole, but I feel like we're not quite there yet. So I feel like we're just ushering in a really actually beautifully balanced new one when the two of them become a thing together.
That is so interesting because, in my own sort of journey, whether it's like even in my life, I'm all neck up. I'm all thought. I'm learning to pull everything down and be more emotional. But sort of even in when we're doing our ascension or our spiritual journey, sometimes you just got to hit the earth. You got to remember,
Right.
I got a body. I got to feed it right. Sometimes it needs a massage. Sometimes it's a pain.
Right.
And so that's a great way to think of, it's almost like the four elements. One of them is earth. Somebody has to be on the earth
totally
for this all to work right. Have you ever seen when twins, I find twins fascinating.
Me too.
Do you have any twin stories, or what if there is a older, like some of these older prehistoric souls you're talking about and a new one? Any good twin stories for us?
Oh gosh. I mean, I'm one of the few home birth twin folks in my area, actually, like in like a very large area. So I do a ton of twins. And it's interesting because we're seeing a lot more absorbed twins now, where one doesn't make it and kind of absorbs back into the placenta.
That's interesting. That was my
it's
next
really
question.
Interesting.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And with that particular scenario, which I'm seeing actually so frequently, like we're seeing so many twins in the placenta, I feel like a lot of these little ones are calling in guides from somewhere else. And that's the absorbed twin. Like it sort of sacrifices the physical body to be a guide in the etheric realm. But yeah, let me think. Twin stories. I mean, on an energetic level, I'm not so sure. They're all, to me, twins are just like absolute magic anyways, right? But it's interesting observing the placentas of the last three twins whose births I've witnessed. Their cords are on opposite sides of the placenta, and there's like a very distinct dividing vein between them. And you can they say you can divine about the baby based on the veins of the placenta. And I do. And with this one, I see often that the twins are coming in with sort of the two sides of one coin, like birth and death, or like, grief and love, or whatever the thing is. But like they're part of the same tree, but on opposite sides. So it's an interesting thing seeing these little ones coming in this interesting way.
They're almost always telepathic, aren't they?
Most of the time they are. Yeah, they at least are able to kind of sense the other one, even if they're not in the space.
Yeah, one of the funniest radio shows I heard was they had everybody call in with their evil twin stories. Oh my God. Oh my God. Some of them, one would come home at night and sleep with the other one's wife. One was a criminal and literally got his brother arrested because he knew the police wouldn't believe. No, that's my twin brother. That's
right.
It was insane. But do you think, so when you're saying one is absorbed into the other, that one could stay as a guide? It's a little controversial in the metaphysical field, I guess. You feel humans can be guides?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I like when I've been in the death realms with people before, like I see guides that stand in the river that help people across. So yeah, of course they can be guides. And I mean, if you look at the old stories, the old Scythian stories and old Indo-European stories, the absorbed twin is the sacred horse. It's like the Castor and Pollux story. So with horses, oftentimes there's an absorbed twin. One twin doesn't make it. And they say in the old like Mongolian steppe that's the horse that then when the horse dies, it rides it into the other realm, And so I feel like that's the same with humans. We're not so different.
I wonder if there's been a lot more twins than we think, but they have sort of absorbed the other one before we even get close to,
Totally. And I think that's a lot of the people that feel, that part of them is missing, or also some of the people that just feel extremely connected to the other realms. It's because like part of them is there.
That's interesting. Okay, we'll be right back, folks. I got a couple more. I got 100,000 questions for you. Okay, hold on, folks. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, you having trouble with your kitty or your pooch or your penguin or your Neanderthal boyfriend? Either way, animal communicator Sonia King is to the rescue. You guys have heard Sonia on the podcast. She is one of my best friends. She has helped me out with Courage, aka the boss, so much. She has helped me when he was sick. She has helped me when he doesn't like his food. Sometimes he just pops in to tell her he's been very busy. That's the relationship they have. But whatever your relationship is with your little buddy or pal, Sonia can help you to understand what's going on. Whether there's an issue, you don't know if they're sick, they're acting funny, or they might just want to say hello. You might want to find their purpose in your life, or just wonder why they bite the mailman. But either way, Sonia King is your lady. You want to book a reading with her at soniaking.com. And that is just as easy as it sounds. SONYAKING. soniaking.com. Book a reading with her and find out what your little ones are thinking. This is an amazing podcast for me because, like I said, I have no interest in having children, so it's fascinating that this is fascinating to me. So the other thing is, do you see when people do, what is that, where they in vitro, or they're trying to have a baby, or do you think that's some of the twins? Is that we've taken that over and tried to do that?
I mean, that definitely happens, right? If you take fertility drugs, they tend to, cause double ovulation, which then makes twins. And they have a very, very different energy than like a lot of the twins I'm seeing without the drugs, because they're two different eggs. And so when it's two different eggs, it feels very much like two different babies coming in for different purposes in a lot of ways that then just like share heart center, right? Because they've shared the same heartbeat of the mom at the same time.
Oh, okay. So I have this, I tell my stories over and over. I apologize to my audience, but I have many women that come to me and they can't have a kid. And right. I pull the cards and I'm like, I don't see what the issue is. Next week, you're not going to believe this, I'm pregnant. Or, I feel like that happens more often than not, where I wonder if them listening to me, like I somehow gave them permission, but it also almost always happens after people have given up or given up in vitro or something. Is that sort of just maybe a psychological part on the mother's part?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's so many parts of that, but I feel like, to bring in a baby, there needs to be an element of like mystery and surrender and wildness, right? So like for people who are trying to conceive, I'm always like, take a belly dancing class, go howl at the moon, have good sex in the forest. I don't know, like do something kind of wild. And it tends to always bring the babies. And I feel like the grasping and the control makes it hard for our eggs to find their way. And yeah, I think that's one of the main things. You got to learn to surrender, and then they come.
That is actually the greatest advice too, especially when young women want to meet the one or their husband. Yeah. It's like, you have to let it go, have fun. You have to let it go. But I do love that advice of go do something wild. Or that feels wild to you. I think that is actually we get so stuck and we get so regimented that I totally agree with you on that. Just, if you want change. Like sometimes people have a hard time with that. You want change. Well, what does that mean? Do anything. Do everything backwards for a day. I don't care.
Yes.
So you may have heard of this. It's actually more of a Asian culture, but I had a friend that literally died of a hungry ghost. She had a tumor on her chest. She was a tiny, tiny woman. And every shaman, and then I kept getting something on it when I was reading for her, and I didn't even know what that was at the time, but it was like a little boy hungry ghost got attached to her. Of course, this is, this is one of those things it just is putting the pieces together. Of course, I could just be crazy. Have you ever heard of or dealt with anything like this, where something is attached to someone in a worse way than just emotional or energetic?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually seen it quite often. And I think like there's a couple ways that I see it come in. One is ancestral, right? Like when you've killed, like in a lot of the old traditions, when you've killed somebody, you have to fast for a certain amount of time and atone for that one spirit. And if you don't, they cling to your breastbone. And that's like across cultures, I feel like that's the way. So I feel like if if your ancestors did something and they didn't atone for it, they didn't fast, it's going to just keep it moving down the line. So I feel like there's tradition, there's old ways of getting rid of this. You fast for a certain amount of time, you give offerings in a certain way. But I also just see like, I think a lot of us are just plagued by hungry ghosts because I feel like the air is thick with them here. I feel like most of the people that die in this country are lost, like don't know where to go. So
you mean just you mean in the afterlife or just
I do. And I think a lot of them not necessarily even are hungry, but just cling to warmth, cling to life because they don't know how to let go and move on to the next thing because of fear, because of just not knowing. So I feel like hungry ghosts are a pretty big issue in this country.
Right. And sometimes that's interesting that you said they connect to the breastbone because this tumor was bigger than her and it was on her chest.
Wow.
And we tried to get I think we were just too late on everything. And she went to do shamans and stuff like that. We tried to remove it and put it in an object, basically making a haunted object, but it just didn't want to go. And we all kept, unrelated people kept getting, there's a little boy here. There's a little boy here. So that's interesting. So you have to look ancestral and it really, wow. So it's fasting or something like that. Wow. That they don't have.
Yeah. It depends where.
Okay.
Yeah.
It depends. It probably depends on the ritual.
On your lineage. And exactly. So much.
I know you could never say this, but do you ever see kids come in with darkness around them?
Of course. Yeah. Actually, not that often, but I definitely see it. I'm like, ooh, all right. Hello. Yeah.
Wow.
And I trust it. I don't think darkness is bad. I think that like death and pain and some of these things, like I think it's part of the dance, and I don't think it's bad. So when I see these little ones, it's like, hey, you've got a road to walk, kiddo. But I'm not going to try to do something to stop them.
Right. They came in for that business.
Yeah. And I mean, I've had some, I've had violence towards me, but I've also had like some mamas that have had some pretty extreme violence done to them where their babies were killed and whatever happened. And what I've seen is like when I've sat with the person that did the violence, and then when I sat with the mom and I've held the body of the baby, I feel like sometimes they come in with that contract because oftentimes when that happens, there's this giant release of energy that needed to happen. And it's hard to say that, because it's so hard. It's like such a hard thing to experience, extreme violence. But, sometimes it's something that you're coming in with the agreement to do that. So when little ones come in with darkness, it's just like, bless you, you're coming in with the hard part, but also like perhaps there's a reason and I trust it.
When someone's aura is black, what does that mean? I know it's not a bad thing, but have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen blackness in people's aura. I've never seen a complete black aura before, but I mean, I think it can be a lot of different things for different people, right? I think I often see like deep shadow. I see lots of fear coming as blackness. And then I also sometimes see curses coming as blackness. So yeah.
Interesting. Are as many people cursed as they think?
Yeah, I kind of think so, to be honest. And I was trained in the sort of the Mexican way since a young one, in part, and they believe that a lot of the practitioners in that place believe that, if you so much as look at somebody and feel envious of them, that you're putting sort of like a very mild form of a curse on them, like an envy curse, right? Which a lot of traditions have, right? The Greeks have the little evil eye, the goat's eye thing to try to repel that. And, every tradition has its own thing. My people wear red around our ankles, there's different things. And I feel like those just add up, and become a really heavy thing that is very curse-like. But I also think a lot of us, we're not trained to have good thoughts towards each other. So I feel like our thoughts are so potent. Like I don't have to light a candle to do magic. Like I can just think the thing and it happens, like we are really good manifestors. And so I feel like, yeah, a lot of us are cursed, although not all of it's that intentional.
Yeah. And some of it is people buying into the curse. Now, a weird, it's funny because I remember somebody once saying to me about comedy clubs, because that's been my business for years. I remember them saying they always feel yucky, which they do. But she said, I always feel like horrible words are painted on the walls.
Huh.
And which is interesting because comedy really is the release, but comedy can be incredibly negative. In fact, anger seems to be, as a comedian, anger is the easiest emotion to tap into with people.
Right.
Aren't you guys mad about this kind of thing? Which I try, that's why I try to go the other way. But there's a mob mentality when you do that kind of, everything's going to hell kind of comedy. But when, sort of to flip that, if we are like doing our own aura cleanse or our own protection, our own psychic protection, and we're in the place we're supposed to be, would those things probably bounce off of us?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think in the same way that we are very powerful with what we think towards somebody, we're extremely powerful at protecting ourselves. It's so easy to just be like, that's not going to affect me. And it doesn't. So I just think, yeah, just consciously protecting yourself, being strong, being whole, those sorts of things are absolutely extremely effective.
Yeah, I think somebody said 90% of the curse of when someone curses you is knowing that they put a curse on you.
Absolutely. We give it our fear is the power that is behind a lot of that.
Yeah, the power that someone else has. So I want to hit this on the birth part and on the death part. What is probably one of the strangest or most shocking things you've seen during a birth as a little one is coming in?
Gosh, the strangest or most shocking thing. I mean, I've definitely seen when the spirit comes in. I remember one of my first births. The baby came in not doing so good. They were resuscitating the baby. I was working in a birth clinic at the time, and I saw this little white butterfly flying into the room, and it landed on the baby's heart, and the baby let out this huge cry as soon as it kind of absorbed into the baby's chest.
And that was what you saw. It wasn't a real butterfly, right?
No, it was what I saw. Yeah. And, yeah, because it just kind of melted, and it was like the spirit of the baby, which is so sweet. And I've had that before. So yeah, I think a lot of my like weirdest things are resuscitation oriented because it's like the spirit's not in, so you get to really witness it coming in. And I've had it before. I had a birth one time where the day before I had found a dead red-tailed hawk. And I work with wings and feathers, and I was like, oh, cool, like the red-tailed hawk medicine is so good. And I went to go process it, and I was holding this hawk, and I was like, nope, it's not, I can't cut into this bird. And so I brought it where it lived, where its people lived, where its family was, and I put it in this bed of flowers and meat and like staying over it, and felt this strong like double helix come up from the hawk that attached to me and then attached to that mama. And then the next day, the baby, she was in labor, and baby was sounding not good, not born yet. So we got in the car, and I was in the back with mama. I was listening to baby. We stopped hearing a heart tone. So we just got baby out as fast as possible. And as we did that, the dad hit a red-tailed hawk. And as soon as he hit the red-tailed hawk, the baby came to life. And so I feel like this hawk gave its life for the baby. It was so strong.
When you say he hit the red-tailed hawk, it was... Where you mean metaphorically you saw that?
No, nope. There was a red-tailed hawk that flew right in front of the car as I was starting to resuscitate the baby. And as soon as he hit it, the baby came to and cried.
Okay, so they were in two different places. I hope he wasn't driving the car into where they're having the baby.
he was. Well, she was having the baby in the back seat of the car. I was with the mom, and he was driving. We were driving to the hospital, and yeah, and he hit the hawk because it just flew right in front of the car. And yeah, as soon as he like hit the hawk, we heard the slam and baby cried. And it was just like this big moment. And yeah, and the little one also has these really beautiful it has a birthmark that he came in with that's very much like the marking on the red-tailed hawk wing, like on the tips of the wings and on the bottoms of the wings, and he has that on his arms, and it's very, very beautiful. So that's a fun thing I've seen in birth, and I feel like birth is usually beautiful and amazing, and then the resuscitations are where some of the interesting stuff gets seen, right?
Yeah, birth just sounds messy. to me.
I mean, it's a lot messier than death, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what how would you interpret that? Would that be, would those red tails be ushering the soul in, or would they be the soul, or we'll never know?
Yeah, I think this one gave its life for the baby. Like, I feel like this little one was not coming, and I feel like this hawk, like, we had some sort of agreement. Like, I remember when I was leaving the offerings for that hawk, feeling this DNA line come from the hawk to that mama to me, and just feeling, that this one is like, okay, we're gonna trade this out. So I feel like, this little boy came in with his own spirit, but it was definitely ushered in and a gift from the hawk.
And the animals get it, don't they? They don't need our
help. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh yeah.
If I see an animal hit by a car, I always just give it Reiki, and I say, thanks for being with us.
Well, actually, you mean like need help to get out? No, when animals get hit by a car, I mean, I always move them off the side of the road so that the ravens don't get hit too. But ravens and crows and all the good ones. But I've definitely seen they usually find their way, but it can take them a little bit, like if they're stunned out of their body.
I know. This is such a funny, dumb story. I don't even know if it fits, but I was walking one time. It was very, very hot, and I saw a squirrel on the road, and it looked so flat to me, and it was laying arms outspread, and I thought it wasn't breathing, and I was trying to get it out of the road, and then I kind of poked it with a stick, and then I was leaning right over it, try to see, and then I felt so bad for it because I thought it was suffering, and I went home and I asked my friend, an animal communicator, I said, should I go hit this squirrel with my car? Kind of, because I was is he in pain? And she was like, no, don't worry. So I go by at night. A couple hours later, I'm driving by just to see, and that squirrel is standing literally on the side of the road, looking at me like, ha ha. There was nothing wrong. I thought it had fallen out of the tree. I thought it got hit. It looked, and I swear it was just and then of course my mind goes back. I go, that thing could have jumped up and bit you, and you'd be in the hospital getting a rabies shot right now. You're
totally
poking it with a stick, but it was serious. It was standing right on the side of the road, looking me right in the eye. Don't worry.
Totally.
So they get it. So now I was going to go to death. I was going to flip to death on the other side. And this is another weird thing. Have you ever heard people that have near-death experiences, or they're really dying, but before they pass, they see all these animals in their room?
I've definitely have people see animals in their room, but I often have people see more like their friends in the room. But yeah, I have actually had that happen a couple times.
I wonder if the animals are I've always said, in heaven you can pet the lions. That's the thing. I wonder if that's what it is. If it is like that. Or I wonder, I've been doing so much research on what archangels really look like. Maybe they come in looking like animals, because parts of them, they said, what are the seraphim, or no, what are the little ones? The cherubs actually have lions' heads and people's heads and all kinds of craziness. Maybe that's it. Maybe they're a type of angel or something we don't know about. Okay.
Maybe. And I also think we have sort of a council of our being, of everything that we have been and everything that we will be and everything that we are. It to me looks like a circle of different creatures, and it's not always animals. For me, in my council, there's a woman with a crow's head, or just different. There's different looking beings, and I think sometimes that council comes in to guide us, and that council can look different for everyone, right? So
yeah, I know around my place, I put up all these stickers above my doors that are the Eye of Horus. And I think Thoth shows up. So as I said to my animal communicator, I'm like, what is Courage looking at? And she's like, I think it's a man with a bird head. And I was like, oh. She's like, that looks familiar to you? And I was like, well. And so they were like, well, just ask him to mask himself so he doesn't scare Courage. And Courage is my dog, by the way. Any really out of the ordinary death stories?
Gosh, out of the ordinary stuff. I mean, it's all a little bit out of the ordinary, but, let me think. I feel like I had one person whose death I witnessed that kind of bounced in and out of their body many, many times. It was for about an hour.
They let go, and they had just had that power to come back in.
Yeah, to come back in fully, like they would beep, like the machine would beep dead. And then like 5 minutes later, it would beep on and they would come back in and like breathe again. And then it would go off again. And yeah, for a long time, this person was like jumping in and out. And finally, it was just like, this is enough of this. And I closed the body and like, made the road and sent them on their way.
Okay. And they did go on their way where they're supposed to go.
They did. And luckily, I felt like there was somebody that came and met them halfway and kind of held their hand that way. But yeah, this person, I've never seen somebody for so long jump in and out. But I had two really sweet death stories, which were like, these were like, old kind of dorky tech men, like really like atheists, like not, afraid of death, don't believe in anything. Like wanted some support because they didn't really have any family or anybody to hold them. So they wanted someone to be there when they died. They weren't alone. They actually, and it was.
Oops, your
so
phone. There you go. I was just going to hold your phone. Your phone is clicking, or I think your finger's on the microphone. But you said two sweet deaths, people that didn't have anyone to cross them over. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I had like no family. We're complete, just like sort of techie atheists, like, it's just like very much of this like middle America style. And both of them, they didn't want any of the woo. They just wanted someone to hold their hand while they passed. And I convinced both of them to take psychedelics, certain psychedelics that were really helpful for death. And both of them got very scared during the psychedelic experience because it was their first, but learned so much. And when it was time to die, they were like, oh, I know I'm going. And then called me to their bedside. And within 10 minutes, they smiled and said goodbye and just left. Like I saw their spirit just levitate out of their body and go exactly where it needed to go.
Wow.
So it was really sweet watching them have an ally, a plant ally in that space.
Wow. And yeah, that sounds amazing. That's, wow. Okay. That's all I keep saying. Wow.
Yeah, it was such a blessing to see. It made me so happy. It was wonderful.
Yes. I had my best friend died on my birthday. And I'll never forget this because I think this is how strong human will is she, like 2 months earlier, she had called me and she said, I had a dream last night and my dad came to cross me over and I said, no way. And he said, no, it's your time. You have to go. And I said, no way. I said, I'm staying for my grandkids, blah, 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 blah. And I remember her telling me this and I remember thinking she was supposed to take that exit.
Yeah.
And after that, she was alive, but her brain was mush. It was, at times she wasn't making sense. And actually it got so bad and she was almost just, the cancer had eaten up so much of her body. And then one night she woke up and she got out of bed, which she wasn't even doing. And she walked over to her husband and goes, I understand now. And she passed. But I thought that's how strong her will was.
Right.
She kept herself alive beyond the point. And that is what a strong personality can do, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. A lot of us do that. Like we stay alive a lot longer than we should.
Wow. And I'm keeping you longer than I said I would on this.
No, you're good.
I thought that was a great segue. Rosie, this was so fascinating. Everybody, you can follow Rosie on Instagram at Herbal Rosie. Anything you want to tell people, or do they call you for readings? If they need a death doula, do you only do it around where you are? Give a little promo for yourself.
I mean, yeah, I just, whatever you need, feel free to just text, talk to me on Instagram. It's kind of the only online presence that I just started. So feel free to let me know on there if you need anything. And I'm happy to do readings or, just consultations or travel, whatever is needed.
Wow. And you do readings, psychic readings or soul readings? What kind of readings do you do?
Kind of all of it. We just sort of talk, and whatever comes up, we just go there.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you for such a fascinating podcast, Rosie.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun talking.
All right, everybody. So thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media, my producer, and everyone. We will see you next week.